the power of this main stage. Take a look at the screens.
I want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Feel him. Feel him now. Do it. Ladies and gentlemen, never.
Greetings, James.
How are you, sir?
And greetings from the dark side. You guys did it better.
Oh, please have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
So good to have you here.
It's very good to be here. It's a nice color.
Is it? Yeah, you like it?
It doesn't swivel.
It doesn't. No. Gosh, we thought we got everything. That would have been a good reveal for you. So welcome. You just got in, didn't you?
I did, yes. Last evening we flew in from London. 11 hours flight, but not bumpy. I guess that's because I was on board and they didn't dare.
No, why would they? And here is a little different than the last time we met and did this in Orlando because it's not 1,000,000 degrees out.
That's true.
Which is nice.
Yes, this is a very interesting. Yeah.
But so you're back, and we're gonna be all around. We're gonna be seeing you throughout the celebration here.
Yes, I'm in the hall, and tomorrow evening is a very interesting evening for me because the guys asked me to come and introduce the 3D version of episode 3.
Yes.
As you know, the Star Wars universe is expanding all the time, and so I confidently hope I'll be invited back to introduce episodes 4, 5, and 6 in 4D, 5, 8, 6D, and of course 7, 8, and 9 in 7D, 8D, and 9D, because the Star Wars universe in space and time is ever expanding.
It's indeed. And that is on the digital stage. How many have been to the digital stage yet with David Collins as your host? An amazing stage, an amazing picture, and it's going to be fantastic, so that's great. Everybody check your apps, the Celebration app, to find out when that is happening and see the Emperor there as well. But, you know, you are really what we like to call here the Grand Mcdiramid of the dark side. Does that sit well with you? Is that all right?
Yeah. Okay.
And you've been doing more of these conventions here. Again, you were with us at Celebration 6, and you will be joining me actually in Florida, back in Florida.
I will. I'm looking forward.
For Star Wars weekend. Is anybody going to that? Week 1. And And so that will be a lot of fun. But you know, I got a question. Do you enjoy this? I mean, this is kind of a whole new experience for you. Stage actor, very respected actor, and then you come out into this area which it's different, right? It's a different world.
It is different, but it's not so different from what I do most of the time, which is performing to a live audience, but not as my 3D self. You know, as some other characters, sometimes by Shakespeare, sometimes contemporary people. So it's not all that unusual.
Right.
But, did I do that?
Might be having a little technical difficulty there, yes, but we'll see.
But, no, it's interesting because it's very nice, well, to meet you, because I'm not behind the hood all the time.
No, behind the hood. And I think we're probably going to get you a handheld mic to replace that one, because that one might have gone to the dark side. See the power that this man holds. It is amazing. Let's hear for Lindsay as she brings out the microphone. Yeah, be careful.
I like the way you did that.
Yes, very good, very good. Very
Seamless is the word, I think.
So, is that all right? Are you okay with that for now?
Fine.
Okay,
That's
sorry about that. But I've got to ask you, is there kind of a secret fanboy in you that really gets into all this? Like, is there anything, you know, do you get to walk the floor at some point and see some stuff and go, ooh, I might want one of those?
What, here?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little bit predictable, but I know you're going to get to this a bit later, but these sort of Shakespeare Star Wars books that are coming out are completely fascinating and very cleverly constructed, you know, and written in verse, which oddly enough I never got a chance to do when George wrote the script. He did his best. He tried very hard. But he would be the first to say that Shakespeare was a little better.
Yeah, just a spin. Yeah. Do you have a favorite to perform in Shakespeare? What's a favorite play?
Most recently I did in London at the theatre that I used to run with another guy called the Almeida Theatre. I played Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. And that's a tricky play. And he's an interesting character because he doesn't behave very well. I mean, like the Emperor, he wants to kill one person in particular. But you sort of understand why he does it, that he's had a tough life and been ill-treated by most of Christian society. So there's a sort of motive for him to behave inexcusably. Whereas the Emperor, you know, has no motive at all. He's just solid evil. He just can't wait to destroy people.
Wow. But speaking of that, can we take it way back to when you were just a young Sith? Okay. Just way, well, actually, I don't know. Yeah, do you see?
Oh, I see.
I see what we did.
That really is scary. Yeah.
I don't know if we actually want to go that far back.
It's the red I don't like.
But actually, not that far back, but we've talked about this before, but it's a great story. If I say great nose to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the first day. That's when it all happened, James, as I know you know, and some of you might know. But it was, you know, I was at home thinking, what's next? While I was in a play at a small theatre in London called the Royal Court Theatre upstairs. And I was playing, of all people, someone you'll all know very well, part of your culture, a sort of Sam Shepard's creation of Howard Hughes, called Henry Hackamore. And I was very old, with very straggly hair in the part, and very long fingernails, and I looked as if I was at death's door, frankly. And that only took about 5 minutes of makeup. And I was, and this of course is what thrilled the casting director. Little did I know it was going to take a little longer later. But she came along and saw me in that, and there was an actor already cast as the Emperor. And unfortunately, he couldn't take the contact lenses, which were fairly fierce. So they were looking for someone else. Mary Selway, for it was she, great casting director, had suggested to George and Richard Marquand, the directors, you know, that maybe they should see me. So I got a telephone call one lunchtime from my agent saying that George Lucas would like to see me. Well, just as I was sort of gasping, you know, and picking my jaw back up and trying to reset my face, there was a car outside, and they'd already arrived. So I got in it. I went to the studios. I met George and Richard over lunchtime. 10 minutes it was. They were already shooting, of course, the other scenes. And I don't know what we talked about, but it was pleasant. But it wasn't about the part. I wasn't asked to read. I wasn't asked to do anything on film. I thought, oh well, I've met him. It's great. And as I was going out the door, he went, "Great to meet you, Ian. Great nose."
That's very good.
So I thought, well, that's very nice. You know, I mean, the man likes my nose. I can tell people that George Lucas complimented my nose, so I'll settle for that. So I went back, and the phone was ringing again as I walked through the door. This is perfectly true. And my agent said, you know, he can hardly contain himself. You've got the part. And I said, oh, great. What's the part? And he went, oh, that's the questions you actors ask. You know, George Lucas gave me a break. Anyway, he leafed through his notes, and he said, he's called the Emperor of the Universe. So I said, oh, well, I guess we'll be doing it then. And so that was the story of the nose joke.
That's the nose. Thank you for that nose story. Yeah. But a stage actor by trade, does it differ when you get on the set and you're having to go back and forth? Is it a lot more waiting? It's just a different experience.
Yes, it is. It is completely different because you have to allow yourself to be filmed, to be photographed. You know, here on a stage like this, I mean, even with a microphone, you have to project a character and yourself. And also you're making connections with the audience that has arrived that night, that afternoon to see the show, and they'll always be different. So the connections will always be different. Whereas in the movie, you learn the lines, you turn up, and you try to have a situation which is entirely concentrated and also wholly relaxed, and it's almost impossible. Particularly when we did Secrets Now, episode 1, for example, because usually they're building the next set when you're on the present set. So you may hear the odd bump like we had a few minutes ago. Someone will drop a bit of scaffolding or something and you stop and you start again and it's fine. But this time they were building the studios, not just the sets. So around us all was sort of complete chaos. And the first assistant director said, whatever you do, don't stop. So we learned to do that. And then the great phrase, I'm sure it had been in the canon before, but it was certainly very present then, we'll fix it in post, came out. So quite a lot of that particular film was fixed in post. And of course those days it was quite usual, as it was in Return of the Jedi, I almost said Revenge of the Jedi, I saw some posters of that this morning to my astonishment. Where it was accepted that most of your part was going to be revoiced because studio noise was so excessive and the digital world wasn't advanced as it is now. So I revoiced the whole of my part in Return of the Jedi.
Really?
But wasn't expecting to do the same in episode 1, Phantom Menace. But interesting enough, as the movies progressed, and in episode 3, hardly any of it, I think, was revoiced. We had a couple of pickups, but the actual, what I did into the microphone on those days was what you heard.
And you had, I mean, there was a lot going on there, and I remember we've talked about the fans blowing and
yeah.
your voice.
Well, this is when you know you're in a movie, but sometimes when you think this is impossible, well, it's like the Star Wars universe, you know, all the jokes I made about 9D and 10D and everything. You think, well, you know, the great thing about George's quest to make those movies, his basis for it all has been nothing is impossible. And I think that's a terrific philosophy. We tried to follow that when we ran the theatre. But the most extraordinary thing about that day that you're referring to, yes, was sort of, yes, that scene was filmed that day. I had to do a number of complicated things in reverse order. First of all, I had to change into the horrible monster that became Sidious and then became the Emperor, and that involved a lot of makeup changes during the day. And then I had to fight Sam into the ground, you know, that was easy. It's particularly easy because Michael Byrne, my stunt double, did most of the work. Always anxious to pay tribute to him for saving my life. And it was occasionally his body, but always my head. So, you know how they
Did you have to do anything different for that, for your head? Then did you have to go in and have them just photograph it from various angles and such? I know.
Yes,
yeah.
And the thing is, when the hair was going in, you may have a picture of that somewhere, to make that effect, it's all live, and there are 3 giant wind machines which were driven at me. And that was quite exciting, until I got half the studio dust in my nose, and the other half in my eyes, and then it filtered its way down into my throat. Now that would have been all right, you know, a few glasses of water and a shower and you're fine. But then George said, we're going to do that scene in the opera at the end of the day. And the day in question was Friday, when everybody is, you know, especially in Australia, can't wait to get out and enjoy their weekend, their Saturdays and their Sundays. And also, there was a little gold gentleman opening champagne on a trolley just to one side because it was the first director's birthday. So, and also in the Studio Village, which I'm sure you know about now, which is this area where many people, almost as many as I'm looking at tonight, no, not quite, sit and watch you on now the giant screen. So what you do is what they're actually seeing, not like in the old days when you could watch things on a tiny black and white monitor and you couldn't make any judgments until you saw the rushes. And the producer, and I always name him on this, Rick McCowan, mobile phone went off 3 times. So I had to sit on a chair, not unlike this, with Hayden sitting there, and nothing else really, blue screen of course. And George said, just relax, you're in a theatre.